Shedeur Sanders didn't need to say a word. His performance did all the talking. During a high-stakes Browns practice, he orchestrated back-to-back red zone drives that left defenders off balance and coaches stunned. The contrast was immediate. Dillon Gabriel followed, and it was like watching a different team. Off-target throws, confusion at the line, and no rhythm. The mood among players shifted visibly. Receivers who had rallied around Gabriel weeks ago now gravitated toward Sanders, drawn to his tempo and confidence.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Something fundamental changed in that practice, because Sanders didn't just demand reps. He forced the conversation. That visible shift is more than a quarterback competition. It's a silent mutiny against stagnation. Players and fans alike are growing impatient with a leadership structure that continues to ignore what's unfolding right in front of them. Coach Stefanski's refusal to pull Gabriel isn't just about loyalty. It's starting to look like denial. Every moment Sanders is kept off the field is another crack in the team's foundation. What was once a simmering frustration has boiled over into outright urgency. The team isn't just calling for change, they're bracing for it. Dillon Gabriel panicked, and it wasn't subtle. The moment Shedeur Sanders stepped onto that Browns practice field and started slinging dimes, something shifted. Not just in the quarterback room, not just in the offense, but across the entire team. Because this wasn't just a couple of nice throws. This wasn't an overhyped breakout moment. This was a live-wire, full-speed embarrassment of the guy currently starting under center. And it hit hard. Gabriel had been skating by for weeks, if not longer. Lackluster reads, slow decisions, flat footwork. He's been giving placeholder energy since training camp. Fans noticed. Teammates noticed. But the coaching staff, led by Kevin Stefanski, kept doubling down. No change. No accountability. Just more of the same dull offense, being led by a quarterback who looks like he's running on autopilot. Then came that practice. Shedeur Sanders didn't just outperform Dillon Gabriel. He dismantled whatever confidence Gabriel had left. The footwork, sharp. The pocket presence, unshakable. The decision-making, faster than anyone else on the field. You could hear it in the huddle. You could see it in how the receivers responded. You could feel it on the sidelines. Meanwhile, Gabriel was spiraling. Not outwardly, he didn't throw a tantrum or storm off, but in the way he moved, the way he hesitated. His rhythm collapsed. He looked over his shoulder after every snap. He knew what was happening. He felt it. The starting job, the so-called trust the staff had in him, it was slipping away, and Shedeur was the reason. And here's what makes it even worse. This isn't a new problem. Gabriel's struggles haven't just appeared overnight. This has been building for weeks. Missed reads, turnovers, a complete lack of spark when it matters. The guy looks uncomfortable every time he drops back. The offense is stale, and fans are done being polite about it. The only person who seems unfazed by all of this? Kevin Stefanski. Despite everything, despite the team's visible frustration, the obvious change in chemistry when Sanders takes the field, and the consistent lack of production from Gabriel, Stefanski still hasn't pulled the trigger. Still starting Gabriel. Still talking about process like this is some long-term science experiment, instead of a team barely holding onto relevance this season. It's frustrating. It's infuriating. And it's also completely unsustainable. Because the team isn't blind. The players see what's going on. They saw Sanders take over practice like a true leader. They saw the difference in energy, pace, and confidence. And then they saw the coaching staff say nothing. And that silence? That hit harder than any post-game quote ever could. No one came out to defend Gabriel. No one pushed back on what Sanders had just shown. There were no words. Just a quiet, somber mood from a coaching staff that knew they were watching a changing of the guard and had no idea how to handle it. That's the issue now. It's not just about quarterback play. It's about leadership. Stefanski's refusal to make a change is no longer just questionable. It's become a liability. He's letting loyalty outweigh logic, and the consequences are stacking up fast. The offense is dragging. Morale is dropping. And if things keep heading in this direction, the season's going to be unsalvageable. And all of it, completely avoidable. Because Shedeur Sanders is right there. Not just showing flashes, but delivering consistently. The talent, the poise, the leadership. He's putting it all on display. Every rep in practice is a case study in readiness. Every throw is a reason to move forward. But the coaching staff won't budge. Stefanski's decision to stick with Gabriel, despite every sign that it's time to move on, is starting to look like a deeper issue. Is it fear? Is it ego? Is it just outdated thinking? Whatever it is, it's pushing the Browns closer and closer to the brink. And fans? They're over it. You can feel the discontent bubbling over. Every press conference gets more heat. Every offensive misfire gets louder boos. It's not a patient crowd anymore. It's a fan base begging for someone to take accountability and do something. Because what's happening now isn't just poor performance. It's strategic failure. When you have a player like Sanders stepping up in practice and showing everything you'd want from your starter, and you don't make the change, you're sending a message. A bad one. You're telling the team that merit doesn't matter. That performance won't be rewarded. That leadership will be ignored in favor of familiarity. And that message? It spreads. It breaks trust. It turns belief into apathy. And when that happens, you're not just losing games, you're losing the team. The worst part? This moment should have been a breakthrough. That practice should have been the spark. It could have been a clean, decisive moment. Shedeur Sanders stepping up, Dillon Gabriel stepping aside, and the team rallying behind a new leader. But instead, it turned into a spotlight on dysfunction, on fear, on a coaching staff so paralyzed by the idea of making a bold move that they let their team drift. The silence after practice wasn't strategy. It was resignation, a quiet acknowledgement that something has to change, and that no one's willing to be the one to change it. And let's be clear, this isn't a feel-good story. It's not about waiting for the right moment to make a switch. The moment already happened. Sanders gave you everything you needed. And the longer you wait, the more damage you do to the locker room, to your season, and to the credibility of this coaching staff. This isn't a quarterback battle anymore. It's a leadership crisis. And the Browns are running out of time to fix it. Shedeur Sanders is ready. The team is waiting. The fans are watching. The only thing left is whether Kevin Stefanski and the front office will have the courage to make the call or continue dragging this team down with their indecision. It's simple. Either start Sanders now or risk losing the season entirely. And if you've been sitting at home screaming this exact thing at your TV, drop a comment below. Do you think it's time for Gabriel to hit the bench? Has Stefanski already pushed this too far? Let us know. Smash the like button if you're tired of the excuses. Share this video with every Browns fan who's been begging for a change. And hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Because whether the Browns step up or fall apart, we'll be right here watching. Because let's be honest, the Browns don't have the luxury of time anymore. This isn't just a storyline to casually monitor. It's a full-blown quarterback controversy with real consequences. What went down at that practice wasn't just a minor confidence wobble for Dillon Gabriel. It was a public unraveling. The kind of unraveling that doesn't get fixed with a motivational speech or a light week of reps. The kind that sticks in everyone's mind, teammates, coaches, media, and fans alike. Because while Gabriel was fumbling through another uninspired set of drills, Shedeur Sanders was putting on a clinic. We're talking clinical footwork, clean drops, sharp reads, and decisive throws. Not a single rep wasted. No hesitation. No second-guessing. Just execution. Confidence. Composure. And the players felt it. You could see heads turning. Linemen holding their blocks just a little longer. Receivers hustling sharper routes. There was an energy shift, the kind that doesn't happen unless the guy behind center is someone people believe in. That energy? It vanished when Gabriel stepped back in. That isn't just a bad sign. That's a red flag flapping in hurricane winds. It tells you exactly where the locker room is leaning. And when a team starts gravitating toward the backup quarterback, openly, quietly, however you want to frame it, that means the change isn't a matter of if anymore. It's when. And right now, that when is already late. What's Stefanski and this coaching staff are doing? Standing by Gabriel in spite of what's unfolding right in front of them. It's not admirable. It's not about stability. It's willful blindness. And that blindness is starting to hurt everything. The team's momentum, the locker room chemistry, the fan base's trust, and any shot at salvaging this season. Because we're not talking about a guy who's struggling but showing signs of growth. Gabriel's not improving. He's not even treading water. He's sinking. And the worst part is, no one's tossing him a lifeline. They're just watching him drown in front of a crowd. And let's not pretend Shedeur Sanders is some project you can afford to slow play. No, he's not raw. He's not in development mode. He's ready. He's everything you could want in a modern quarterback. Fast reads, fast feet, fast processing. He doesn't just make throws, he makes statements. Every snap at that practice was a message to the staff. I'm here. Let's go. But what did Stefanski do in response? He folded his arms, stayed silent, and stuck to the same script he's been reading off all season. There was no acknowledgement. No nod to the shift that just happened. Just the same stale messaging about continuity and trusting the plan. But here's the reality. The plan isn't working. It hasn't been working. And the only thing more damaging than a bad plan is pretending it's still worth following. Because this team is drifting. The results don't lie. And every game they keep Gabriel under center, despite all evidence pointing to Sanders, is another game wasted. Another winnable opportunity lost to pride or fear of rocking the boat. At some point you have to ask, who is Stefanski really protecting? Is this about giving Gabriel more chances? Or is it about shielding his own decision-making from criticism? Because the longer this drags out, the more it feels like the latter. The refusal to act isn't about belief in Gabriel. It's about not wanting to admit he was the wrong choice. And that kind of leadership, that's how teams implode. It's one thing to bet on a guy and be wrong. It's another to keep doubling down on that bet while everything burns around you. And right now, that's exactly what's happening. Stefanski is watching the walls crack, the floor give out, and the fans start heading for the exits. And still, he's standing there saying, we're staying the course. That course? It's going straight into the ground. And let's talk about those fans for a second, because they are not dumb. They're not casuals who only look at stat lines. They know what's going on. They're watching these practices. They're reading every beat report. They're dissecting every play. And they're fed up. You can feel it. The tone has changed. The comments are louder. The questions are sharper. The patience? Gone. Because how many times can you watch a quarterback miss a wide-open receiver on 3rd and 7 before you start screaming into your jersey? How many stalled red zone drives? How many 3-and-outs? How many dead-eyed pressers with "we'll fix it next week" energy can a fan base be expected to endure? The Browns owe their fans better than this. The locker room deserves better than this. And most importantly, the future of this team can't afford more of this. Because here's the uncomfortable truth Stefanski refuses to face. If he doesn't make this change soon, it might not just be Gabriel out of a job. It might be him. At this level, leadership is about decisions. Not just game plans and play calls, but bold, defining decisions that steer the season one way or the other. And this quarterback decision is the moment. This is the one everyone will remember. Does Stefanski hand the reins to the guy who just electrified practice, who clearly has the team's attention, who is visibly more prepared and more productive? Or does he keep riding with the guy who is giving him nothing? Because if he gets this wrong, if he keeps waiting for Gabriel to magically figure it out, he won't just lose more games. He'll lose the locker room, the media, the fans, and eventually, the job. That's how high the stakes are now. This team is at a crossroads, and it's time to stop pretending it's complicated. It's not. You've got a quarterback who's doing everything right. You've got one who's visibly crumbling. You've got a staff acting like they can't see the difference. And you've got a fan base watching it all, furious, Because they can. So now the question is, will the Browns act like a team that wants to win? Or a team too scared to admit they've made a mistake? Because there's no more middle ground. The grace period is gone. The excuses are dried up. What's left is a moment of clarity, and a choice that has to be made right now. Start Shedeur Sanders. Do it for the team. Do it for the fans. Do it for the future. The Browns are standing at the edge of a cliff, and Stefanski is staring into the abyss like at a motivational poster instead of a warning sign. Because at this point, it's not just about Dillon Gabriel's poor performance. It's about the ripple effect. The morale dip. The chemistry cracks. The tension that's gone from background noise to full volume alarm. The practice where Shedeur Sanders outshined Gabriel wasn't just a moment. It was a referendum. And the verdict? Everyone saw it. Everyone felt it. Shedeur didn't just perform well. He commanded the offense. The ball was coming out quick, clean, accurate. His footwork was tight, his timing was surgical, and every rep had a rhythm. Not just the rhythm of a guy running drills, the rhythm of a quarterback leading a team. Guys were rallying behind him. The tempo picked up. Energy levels rose. Even coaches were visibly leaning in. Contrast that with Gabriel, who looked every bit like a guy losing control. Overthrows. Second-guessing. Hesitation in the pocket. You could see the panic creeping in with every snap. His body language told the whole story. This wasn't a guy responding to pressure. This was a guy crumbling under it. And then came the silence. After practice, the mood shifted into something heavier. No fist bumps. No jokes. Just a coaching staff walking off the field like they'd witnessed something they couldn't unsee. The kind of quiet that only happens when a hard truth has finally settled in. But no one wants to be the first to say it out loud. And honestly, that silence was louder than anything Stefanski could have said at a press conference. Because now it's no longer about competition. That's over. This isn't two guys battling for a spot. This is one guy ready to lead, and one guy being protected by a coaching staff afraid to admit they backed the wrong horse. And that fear? It's dangerous. Because while Stefanski continues to insulate Gabriel, the locker room is moving on. Quietly, maybe. But it's happening. You can't watch what Sanders did in that practice and not feel the shift. Veteran players saw it. Younger guys responded to it. The momentum changed. And Gabriel felt that change more than anyone. Let's be honest. No quarterback walks off a practice field after being completely outshined and doesn't feel it. And Gabriel's confidence? Already fragile. You could see it break mid-rep, and the longer he stays in this starting role, while clearly under-delivering, the worse it's going to get, for him and for the team. So why hasn't Stefanski made the change? Why, after weeks of sluggish offense, and now a definitive performance from Sanders, is Gabriel still the starter? At this point, it's not just a question, it's a problem. A leadership problem. A credibility problem. Because when you refuse to adjust in the face of undeniable evidence, you're not protecting the team. You're putting your ego first. And that's exactly what this feels like now. Stefanski dug in on Gabriel, and now he's refusing to dig out. Even as the team slips. Even as the fans grow more restless. Even as Sanders stands ready. And let's not forget, fans have been patient. They've watched this play out week after week. They've hoped for improvement. They've waited for a spark. They've been sold on growth and sticking to the plan. But that patience? It's gone. You look at social media, post-practice breakdowns, fan forums. The message is clear. People aren't just asking for Sanders to start. They're demanding it. And not because they're reactionary. Because they've seen it. They saw a quarterback take control of the offense. They saw teammates respond. They saw a real leader step forward, and they're wondering why the coaching staff won't follow. And maybe the scariest part of all this? If Stefanski continues to resist the change, it won't just cost him games. It'll cost him trust. Trust from his players. Trust from his staff. And trust from a fan base that's already been burned too many times by false hope and wasted seasons. Because there's no middle ground anymore. You either act or you stall. You either lead, or you lose the locker room. And Stefanski? He's dangerously close to choosing the wrong side. This isn't about benching Gabriel to punish him. It's about recognizing that he's no longer the best option. It's about putting the team first. It's about acknowledging that your initial choice isn't working and having the guts to pivot. The great coaches, they do that. They don't let pride blind them. They don't let fear freeze them. They read the room, they read the tape, and they make the move. And right now, the move is obvious. Start Shedeur Sanders. Not next week. Not after reevaluation. Not when the season's already off the rails. Now. Because every game they don't, that's another opportunity wasted. Another week of a disconnected offense. Another wave of internal frustration. Another step closer to this team turning on itself. Sanders has earned it, not just with raw talent, but with readiness. And when your most prepared quarterback is sitting on the sideline while the starter buckles under pressure, what are you even doing? This moment, this practice, it wasn't just a footnote. It was a flashing red warning sign. And if Stefanski ignores it, it won't just define this season. It'll end it. So the question now isn't, is Sanders ready? It's, how much more damage are you willing to take before you give the guy who's ready a chance? The locker room knows. The fans know. And deep down, Stefanski probably knows too. He just hasn't had the guts to act. But if he waits too long, the decision might get taken out of his hands. Because quarterbacks can lose games. But coaches who won't adapt, they lose everything. And if you're tired of watching this team spiral while the answer sits on the bench, let us know in the comments. Should Sanders take over immediately? Has Stefanski already waited too long? Where do you stand on this? Smash the like button if you've had enough of the indecision. Share this with every fan who's ready for a new chapter under center. And hit subscribe, because you know the story's just getting messy, eh? We'll be right here, breaking it down every step of the way.